Okay, we're going to talk about the light reaction today, light dependent reaction. Light dependent reaction. And you've heard it's also called the dark reaction. Because it doesn't need light, but it gives you the wrong idea that it has to happen in dark. It does not. But there's one other name. It's also known as the Calvin cycle. Now, why would it be called the Calvin cycle? Because Calvin was the person who discovered it. And it takes place in the stroma. Now, you remember that chloroplast contains thylakoids, stacks of them, called granum or grana for plural, all the way through it. And it's in these thylakoids that the light-dependent reaction takes place. But in between all these, and between all the places in there, is a fluid. We say it's fluid-filled spaces. These are fluid-filled spaces called the stroma. So we'll have CO2 coming into the chloroplast, and we'll have sugars coming out. It is this part, the Calvin cycle, or the light independent reaction, is where CO2 is converted into sugars. And there's a diagram from the book. So these three carbons are CO2s, and these here are waters. Waters are also used to make CO2, because remember, glucose is C6H12O6. So it's not just CO2. It's water and CO2 together making the glucose. And right here is the Calvin cycle. So that's a very simple definition of the light independent reaction, is converting CO2 and water into sugars. So you have the CO2, say 1 CO2 comes here, and then we have another molecule. That's not going to work. Let's see. We have a 5-carbon molecule. It's known as RUBP. Stands for ribulose biphosphate. You don't have to remember that, but it's a 5-carbon molecule. it comes in here, and so does CO2, and they are going to fix the carbon dioxide without the addition of energy, and that is done by ribisco. Ribisco stands for ribulose biphosphate carboxylase, and all that means is that it's an enzyme that attaches a carbon to this. And so we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 6 carbon molecule. And this is an unstable molecule. Remember, you didn't use any energy to attach it, so it's unstable. Now remember all those ATPs and NADPHs that we had? Well, this is where ATP comes in. And the NADPH. What this happens is that now we're converting this into 2 3 carbon molecules. And there's different ones. They're not, what's the 3 carbon molecule here is not the same 3 carbon molecule here, but eventually it becomes this 3 carbon molecule. Remember, we have 2 of them, and it's known as G3P, glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. And the only reason I mentioned that one by name is that it's going to reappear again later in this chapter. Now, as you look at here, you've only added 1 carbon. That's not adding much. You can't make it. You want to make a 6 carbon glucose. So this adds 1 carbon to come up with 1 new G3P. Completely new G3P needs 3 turns. That means 1, 1, 2, 3. Then to make glucose, so that's, we would say, let's do another color, 3 turns, okay? Well, that would mean that then you would have 1 G3P, and you would have 5 G3P here. So 1 new G3P, and it's from the G3P that they'll make the other sugars, and 5 of them return to this, and what it is, they'll have enzymes that will take these G3Ps and reconvert it into ribulose biphosphate. But what about 1? Okay, I have to do my color. What about 1 new glucose? Remember, glucose is C6H12O6. So if you need 1 turn for 1 new G3P, which is 3 carbons, 3 turns, sorry about that, 3 turns, you would need 6 turns for 1 new glucose. Let's go back to the diagram. So there, 3 turns. So if you do 6 turns, you would then have 2 new G3Ps. You would have 10 of these. And that means you have 30 at 10 G3Ps. That means you would make 6 new. That's okay. So you had to use 3 of these. That would give you 6 of the ribose biphosphates. But there it shows 3 turns, 1 G3P. 3 turns, 1 G3P. 6 turns, 1 new glucose. So, you just reviewing it again. Carbon dioxide enters the Calvin cycle. Energy is added and carbon molecules are rearranged. The energy came from, and where did that energy come from? Energy came from the light dependent reaction. In the form of ATP and NADP, DPH. High energy 3 carbon molecules leaves the cycle, and we call that a G3P. And there we have a diagram from the book. Here's where the CO2, and it has it, 3 CO2s come in. And this means you're using 6 ATPs. And you have that unstable 6 carbon molecule. It's going to get changed here. Finally here we get our G3P. and with three turns we have 6 of them. One of them will go out here, and it's showing here that if there's one already out there, it'll join with and make glucose. The other 5 go here. And notice we have to use ATP again. So you see, in order to get it back to ribose biphosphate, to reconvert them, we have to use some more ATP. So this is using up energy, but that's okay, because that means we just recycle it and keep it going and going and going. That's a cycle, and that is the Calvin cycle, also known as the light independent reaction, also known as the dark reaction.